Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Our top story. President Trump says the U.S. is in a trade war with China, tensions spiking between the world's two largest economies after Beijing unleashed export restrictions on critical minerals.
If you can't come to an agreement or a deal at that meeting, are we in for a sustained trade war with China?
Well, you're in one now.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent warns what could come ahead if China doesn't want to be a reliable partner, the administration weighing more control in strategic sectors to fend off Beijing's blow.
If China wants to be an unreliable partner to the world, then the world will have to decouple.
In Latin America, President Trump promises strong support for Argentina's economy and makes it clear there's a red line: no Chinese military on Argentine soil. Despite U.S. export bans on Nvidia's cutting-edge GPUs entering China, reports online reveal they are still being sold there. We take a closer look at what's going on. Before we dive into today's news, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter using the link down below. It drops Friday morning straight to your inbox. Don't miss it. President Trump said Wednesday the U.S. is in a trade war with China, warning of rising tensions between the two countries. Take a listen.
You're meeting with President Xi in a few weeks.
Yeah.
If you can't come to an agreement or a deal at that meeting, are we in for a sustained trade war with China?
Well, you're in one now. Look, we have 100% tariff. If we didn't have tariffs, we would be exposed as being a nothing.
President Trump slapped an additional 100% tariff on China last Friday, raising the baseline to 130%. New tariffs are set to take effect on November 1st. The move comes after China imposed new export restrictions on rare earth minerals. These are critical materials the U.S. needs for weapons and cars. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said Wednesday that the world would have to decouple if China wants to be an unreliable partner.
If China wants to be an unreliable partner to the world, then the world will have to decouple.
Bessent emphasized that decoupling is not the goal. The administration wants to de-risk and diversify rather than sever ties altogether. But he says China's latest move in restricting 5 more rare earth elements last week and dozens of related technologies sends a message that can't be ignored. And U.S. industries are already feeling the pressure. U.S. automakers are reporting delays in getting Chinese-made rare earth magnets. Bessent has accused the CCP of giving unreliable explanations for those delays.
When we asked the Chinese about this, they said, oh, it probably had something to do with the holiday. Had something to do with the holiday. So they can't be trusted with the global supply chain.
Bessent said the administration plans to take up more control in strategic sectors to combat China's export restrictions. That's by taking more equity stakes in key companies. He noted that sectors such as rare earths, semiconductors, steel, and pharmaceuticals are being considered. He said the U.S. also needs a strategic stockpile of critical minerals, similar to its strategic petroleum reserve. It's the nation's emergency oil supply for times of shortage. In addition, Bessent said the administration aims to set price floors across a range of industries. It's looking to prevent Chinese companies backed by state subsidies from flooding the market with low-priced goods. Bessent said the administration would not take ownership stakes in industries that are not strategic, adding they do have to be careful not to overreach. He said Trump still expects to meet Chinese leader Xi Jinping in South Korea later this month. The Chinese Commerce Ministry responded on Thursday, accusing the U.S. of stoking panic over its rare earth controls. China is reacting strongly against Pakistan's shipments of critical rare earth materials to the U.S. as part of a new partnership earlier this month. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson was speaking of a wedge being driven between China and Pakistan's alliance. Earlier this month, Pakistan delivered its first batch of enriched rare earth elements to Missouri-based U.S. Strategic Metals. The South Asian nation reportedly controls roughly $6 trillion worth of rare earth mineral reserves that the U.S. can potentially tap into. The deal is seen as a key step in U.S. efforts to secure critical minerals used in advanced manufacturing and defense technology. On Thursday, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson denied that Pakistan's actions could pose a threat to Beijing's interests. China's rare earth export controls are set to kick in on November 8th, adding more tension to an already fragile trade relationship with Washington. China currently dominates the rare earth market, controlling more than 60% of global production. Experts say China plans to use the new export rules as leverage ahead of a potential Trump-Xi meeting later this month. The FCC said on Wednesday it's moving to bar Hong Kong telecom carrier HKT International from operating in the U.S. The agency cited national security concerns as Hong Kong is under Chinese communist control. The Hong Kong telecom carrier is affiliated with China Unicom Americas, a Chinese state-owned company. In 2022, the FCC blocked China Unicom Americas from the U.S. market. If finalized, the ban would prevent the HK company from providing international and domestic telecom services to and within the U.S. Washington has taken a series of actions against China's telecom and tech industries in recent years. FCC Chair Brendan Carr said on Wednesday that the commission is working to ensure that Chinese-controlled entities that pose national security risks, quote, cannot connect to our telecom networks. President Trump and FBI Director Kash Patel touting the accomplishment of the crackdown on Chinese espionage and the efforts to drain Russia's financial means to stop the war. NTD's Washington correspondent Mario Otsu has details from the White House.
We have gone after espionage activities against our main counterparts in China, Russia, and Iran. In China alone, we've had over a 50% increase in espionage arrests alone in prosecution.
This coming as the FBI director says that the Chinese Communist Party engages in the greatest level of espionage against the United States by penetrating our telecommunications infrastructure, water, energy, and electrical grids. And the president breaking some news on India, saying he spoke to Prime Minister Modi.
And he assured me today that they will not be buying oil from Russia. That's a big stop. Now we got to get China to do the same thing.
China is Russia's #1 oil buyer, with India being #2. President Trump says that Russia losing its economic support could help end the war in Ukraine faster. He also emphasizes the importance of his tariff strategy in ensuring national security and floats the idea of attending the Supreme Court arguments against his tariff case, something that he's never done before.
The UK domestic spy agency MI5 is warning the country's politicians that they are being targeted by agents from China, Russia, and Iran. They say the foreign agents are allegedly seeking to undermine democracy.
UK lawmakers are being warned of attempts to gain information through phishing attacks, blackmail, and by cultivation of long-term personal relationships. MI5 says politicians have to protect UK institutions from espionage and foreign interference. The agency sent out a new guidance urging politicians to keep track of odd social interactions and overt flattery. The country's security minister says those working in government, public service, or politics should trust their instincts.
President Trump pledged wide-ranging support for Argentina's economy. At the same time, he said a red line for the South American nation: no Chinese military presence is allowed on Argentine territory.
I'm with this man because his philosophy is correct.
U.S. President Donald Trump expressed his support for Argentina's President Javier Milei during their meeting at the White House Tuesday. The visit comes days after the U.S. agreed to provide a major financial lifeline to the South American nation, the centerpiece of which is a $20 billion currency swap with Argentina's central bank, exchanging stable U.S. dollars for volatile pesos. The economic lifeline for Argentina marks an unusual move for the U.S., particularly under an administration that has largely stayed away from major foreign interventions. The White House has framed the deal as a strategic effort to stabilize a key regional ally.
Trump told his Argentine counterpart on Tuesday explicitly that he would be, quote, very upset about any Chinese military activity in the country. Back in 2012, Argentina let China build a 500-acre space station in the southern part of the country. The U.S. has long worried that the CCP could conduct secret military activities at the site. It looks like some powerful U.S. tech is still finding its way into China, even when it's not supposed to. Earlier this week, images surfaced online showing brand new cutting-edge Nvidia 5090 graphic cards in China. That's despite U.S. export bans meant to keep that hardware out. MSI, the distributor of these cards, made a statement saying it hasn't officially sold or shipped these GPUs to China. The company said it complies with international regulations and that any of these Nvidia cards spotted in China likely came from unauthorized resellers. It's not the first time high-end chips have slipped through export bans. Earlier reports from the Financial Times uncovered $1 billion worth of Nvidia GPUs smuggled into China despite strict U.S. controls. MSI said only the toned-down version of these 5090 models are legally sold in China that meet Washington's regulations. Coming up, why is the Chinese Communist regime described as an existential threat to freedom? A national security analyst breaks down what makes the China threat unique.
Communism and liberty are oil and water. They can never coexist. So you're going to have an ultimate showdown at some point.
A spying case in the UK involving China has collapsed, sparking outrage and raising concerns over national security. The British government now under pressure. Welcome back to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. With tensions high between the U.S. and China, why is Communist China called an existential threat to freedom? What makes the threat unique? We spoke with national security analyst Casey Fleming, who's also the CEO of Black Ops Partners and author of the upcoming book, The Red Tsunami, The Silent Storm Killing Your Freedom, for insights. Over the years, we've seen lots of different people, lots of different administrations, heads of intel, all of that saying that, communist China is a rising or the biggest existential threat, different terms in that like. But you have all these different administrations, for one, agencies kind of tackling it like a game of whack-a-mole, right? It's like, oh, there's this issue, there's chips, there's AI, there's intellectual property threat, there's old defense, there's espionage, like all these different angles. You, of course, have had you on multiple times throughout the years. You connect the dots to try and get that big picture and really show the threat. And on that note, I see it right behind you, but you do have a forthcoming book called The Red Tsunami, The Silent Storm Killing Your Freedom. Talk to us about that. What is the storm and what are the freedoms at risk here?
Well, the storm is freedom. Freedom is at the center of that storm. When I speak, everybody asks, there's always two questions. Where's your book? And I'm not a book guy. Where's your book? And then what can I do tomorrow morning? What can I do next week? Give me things to do to help fix this and to get us out of the pickle that we're in. So I decided that I was waiting for somebody to write the book. Nobody would write the book. So I ended up having to do it myself. It's going to be, you can pre-order it now by going to theredtsunami.com. And it'll be launched the week of January 20th. Which is a Tuesday. But I connect the dots. We connect the dots, which everybody's asked. They've demanded this book out of me for years. And I always thought somebody was going to put this book together, and they never did. Now, other people have written excellent books in and around the subject, but nobody has ever tied everything together for the common man. And that's what this book is. So this book should be, by the way, it's not really a book. It's a survival guide. And it is based 100% on intelligence. It's not opinion. It is not political. Because it's intelligence, it rides 2 or 3 levels above politics. So the premise is that we on the left, the center, and the right have much more in common together than we have with our enemy. And our number one enemy, according to the director of the FBI, the previous director of the FBI, and the current director of the FBI, the number one threat to the future of the United States is communist China. The CCP is through all fibers of our country. They're inside our borders, and it needs to be rooted out. There are even intelligence reports that there are over 200,000 CCP and PLA, that's their army, special forces inside U.S. borders. That's 200,000. That's the size of Salt Lake City or Akron, Ohio. And they are in sleeper cells waiting to be activated. On top of all the farmland that's been purchased, all it takes is a couple of buried containers, shipping containers full of drones on those properties, and then you've got these sleeper cells with 200,000 PLA soldiers, special ops soldiers, and then you've got Chinese truck drivers that can drive around the United States and move these guys because they don't have to prove any kind of ID. They're just Chinese truck drivers to drive around troops, drones, shipments, unnoticed. So it's a lot easier to set up behind the enemy lines than to do it after the war has started. And I hate to speak about so drastically and seriously, but I've been, my team and I have been on this for 15 years, and it hasn't changed. It's just become very, very serious at this point in time.
Why is China the biggest threat? What's unique about this threat?
China, number one, there's only one China, and it's completely controlled by the Chinese Communist Party, a communist totalitarian regime. They've been after the United States to completely control the world ever since 1949, when they actually came into power. Their anniversary is 2049, that they plan on completely dominating and controlling the entire planet. We know that they're way ahead on that mission. They've also partnered with the World Economic Forum and a lot of other entities to replace the United States. Well, when they replace the United States, they're not talking about coexistence. They're talking about complete and utter domination, which means your children, my children, everybody in the United States and the free world will become slaves to the Han Chinese. So what's changed is we've built this monster. We've built this enemy. They cannot exist with freedom. Communism and freedom, communism and liberty are oil and water. They can never coexist. So you're going to have an ultimate showdown at some point. You're having it now with unrestricted warfare, but we've already seen biological warfare with COVID. That's just part A. There's going to be part B and part C on biological warfare. You've seen agro type of issues where they're bringing in biohazard seeds, biohazard fungus, biohazard blights, all these type of things. They are at war with the United States, and we don't understand it. The average American doesn't understand it, and that's the reason for the book. So we've created this monster. It's the second largest economy now in the world. They know they can't exist with the United States. They hate the United States. They teach their kids that they're white pigs in the United States. So, we're not seeing that in the average American's not seeing that because mainstream media is compromised, and mainstream media only shows you the narrative that they want you to see. And it's none of what I'm talking about here. And that's the reason for the book. Quite honestly, it needs to be in every mailbox, every school, every university, every hospital reading, doctor's office reading. The book needs to be everywhere so people can understand how to decipher and decode this chaos that they've put us in. And it also maintains your critical thinking so you can actually navigate going forward through all this chaos. And it's not going to stop until, honestly, Americans and the free world unite. And that's the reason we've also done a movement. It's called freedomforever.global. It's in development right now, but that's also something for people to do immediately. Read the book, join the movement, and all of us will be voting. We vote every day. Americans vote every day. How? Through their wallets. So we will not do business. We will recommend not doing business with companies that are pro-CCP, invested heavily in the CCP, and focus on those American companies, or second level, those free world allied companies they're building this whole bipolar world. When you hear multipolar, that's what Xi Jinping and the Russians want you to see. They want to say multipolar world. No, don't buy it.
Shifting to the UK, a China-related spying case is in the spotlight. The case has collapsed, putting the British government under pressure over national security concerns. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer said Wednesday he'll release evidence given to prosecutors by a senior official.
The final statement in this case was submitted in August 2025. There was no further submission of evidence, one way or the other, after any discussion in September. This is a red herring, a completely scurrilous allegation made by the Leader of the Opposition.
And let me be clear, Mr. Speaker, about what has happened. A serious case involving national security has collapsed because this government is too weak to stand up to China. And if the Prime Minister cannot protect the members of this House, what does that say about his ability to protect this country?
In an unexpected move last month, Britain's Crown Prosecution Service dropped charges against two men. The pair denied passing politically sensitive information to a Chinese intelligence agent. The prosecution said the decision was made because the evidence it needed was not provided by the government after months of effort. This evidence would clarify that China was a threat to the UK's national security. Starmer said the fault lay with the previous Conservative administration, which was in power when the men were charged. The trial's collapse led to accusations from opposition parties saying the government did not want to jeopardize ties with China.
The White House has cautioned Britain that failing to prosecute the two alleged Chinese spies could strain UK's special ties with the U.S. Officials say it could also jeopardize intelligence sharing between the two countries. The world's largest supplier of computer chip-making equipment said Wednesday it expects to benefit from booming AI investment. It also warned that demand from China is expected to drop significantly next year.
ASML expects to keep on benefiting from booming investments in AI, but the firm also warned Wednesday it sees a big fall in demand from China coming next year. ASML is the world's biggest supplier of computer chip-making equipment. Wednesday's middling guidance projected sales will be flat or better next year, although analysts said this may be upgraded in January. The Dutch firm's net bookings hit $6.27 billion in the third quarter, just ahead of forecasts. The results came after a series of mega deals between AI firms and chip makers in September and October. Those agreements will likely mean more demand for chips. ASML CEO Christophe Fouquet said the firm is seeing continued positive momentum around investments in AI. Although he added he expects Chinese customer demand and net sales to fall significantly next year. ASML denied the expected decline was due to previous stockpiling of chip machines by its Chinese customers. The company's lithography tools are important for chip making and sold to TSMC. The Taiwanese firm manufactures most AI chips for Nvidia and other logic firms like Intel. It also serves memory chip makers Samsung, SK Hynix, and more.
The U.S. has blocked Dutch company ASML from shipping its most advanced chip-making tools to China over concerns they could boost Beijing's military tech. And regarding China's current rare earth export controls, the company says it's well prepared with plenty of raw materials in stock. That's all for today's China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. If you have any feedback on the show or have something you'd like to see us cover, send us an email at chinainfocus@ntd.com. We'd love to hear from you. For on-the-clock original news coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for watching. See you tomorrow.